Welcome to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast with Shannon Scott. This program is sponsored by Kava, home of streaming Bible studies, teaching series, and workshops to deepen your faith. Check them out at Kava, QAVA.tv. And now, on with the show.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. I'm so thrilled about today's conversation. It is with Sandra Stanley and her daughter, Allie Stanley Cooney. I have known the Stanley family for the better part of 30 years personally, and my whole life because I grew up at First Baptist Atlanta under Dr. Charles Stanley, and Andy Stanley is his son, and this is Andy's wife, Sandra, and daughter, Allie, that are joining us today to talk about their new book, Meet Me in the Middle, 8 Mother-Daughter Conversations about Life and Faith. Sandra and Andy founded North Point Ministries in 1995. Sandra graduated from Georgia Tech as well as Dallas Theological Seminary, and her ministry passion is promoting foster care in the local church. As a foster mom, she helped create and launch Fostering Together, which is the foster care initiative of North Point Ministries. Allie graduated from Auburn University with a degree in communication. She completed the North Point residency program and simultaneously earned a Master of Arts in Christian Education from Dallas Theological Seminary. With a decade of experience in guiding students along their spiritual journeys, Allie is passionate about empowering middle school, high school, and college students to embrace a life devoted to following Jesus wholeheartedly. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation, and it's for you, whether you are a mom of daughters in this age group or whether you're just a mom in general. I think this is a really sweet conversation about parenting and the ways that we can see parenting have a really healthy impact on the kids whose lives we have been given to steward by God. So sit back and enjoy this conversation with Sandra Stanley and Allie Stanley Cooney. Well, Sandra and Allie, welcome to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. This is so fun.
Thanks for having us, Shannon.
I already did your official intro that people have heard, but I just have to say personally, before we talk about this amazing book, Allie, this is definitely the first time I've interviewed someone that I knew as a baby. So you may hold that record as the only person that will ever be true of.
I'll be signing autographs later.
Yeah, Shannon has known your dad longer than I have known your dad. So
yes,
and her
it's
parents.
so sweet. Yeah, it's so sweet to do this and to just watch you grow up. I'm now officially that person that people always said to me, I remember you when you were this high, and that's true of you. But now you are married with a sweet family of your own. So tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so I got married to Clay in March of 2020, which
super fun time.
Do not
for a
recommend getting married then, but we did it, and it was awesome and
global
beautiful.
Pandemic. Yep.
And then about 2 years ago, we had our baby girl Haven, and so she's almost 2. She'll be 2 in November, but she acts 2. You know, she's 2.
Yes.
And it's just the best. It's so much fun. She loves playing hide and seek and running around and building forts. So it's super fun.
Yeah, that's
and
so sweet.
I mean, words, I can't even stand it. Oh my gosh.
All of them.
Yeah.
And all the ways that they pronounce words that you're hoping they'll never get it right.
She has a little backpack and she'll go backpack. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me bottle that up.
You're like, please don't ever say it the right way. I know you have to one day.
Every time she starts saying a word the right way, I'm like, no.
Oh, that's so sweet. The videos that you post on Instagram with her, I was looking through some of them preparing for this and just thinking maybe we should just talk about Haven the whole time
because now we go get her, prop her up. She'll tell you about her backpack.
Yes, so good. And Sandra, you were my 6th grade small group leader. Yeah. I vividly remember student camp, youth camp, we called it back in the day, at Epworth by the Sea. I don't even know if camp still
St.
happens
Simons, Georgia.
at
I think
Epworth.
it's still there. Yeah.
So yeah, I remember vividly that you had blue eyeliner that you wore, and I thought, okay, this is now goals for me, is I want to master blue eyeliner.
Oh my goodness, the 80s,
The
the
craziest thing
big
I've ever
hair,
heard.
the blue eyeshadow, the blue eyeliner. It was the best. It
was a time, that is for sure.
It was.
And as you mentioned, Andy was my youth pastor, went on to be my boss back in the early days of North Point Community Church, which it was so fun to be there and get to help start with my new husband at the time, now 25 years in. But you and Andy have been such a profound part of my life. You have given me parenting advice. I remember when my kids were babies and we were at Big Stuff Camp, and you talked to me about the process for when they're wanting to flip off the diaper changing table and how to reel that in, which was so helpful because I was pulling my hair out. And then I remember you also telling me about, and I think maybe you've even shared this in parenting things that we have been at, where to get our boys to talk, if we will sit on the couch and scratch their back, they usually start talking. And that has been 100% true with my son. So
maybe not
free
for every
parenting.
boy, but for both of mine, it was gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was that's exactly right. It has worked in a wonderful way. But you guys have been such an encouragement to me through the years, both in life and in ministry. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to Andy.
Thank you, Shannon.
Well, today we get to talk about this fun book, which I'm so excited about. It is called Meet Me in the Middle, 8 Mother-Daughter Conversations About Life and Faith. And I just want to read this part from the back because when I read this, I thought, oh, this is why this is so needed and necessary for people. It just says, sometimes parent-child conversations can feel forced or awkward. Other times, necessary conversations don't happen until defenses have gone up, lines have been drawn, and feelings have been hurt. But what if you could have open, honest conversations with your teen daughter before a crisis occurs? I think all moms are saying, yes, tell us how, tell us how. And so that is what inspired you to write this. But I'm wondering, what made you decide now's the time?
Well, I think a big moment for me was right after I had Haven, and I'm holding this little 6-hour-old or something, and I'm crying probably. And I look over at my mom and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. You love me this much? Like, as much as I love this little baby, you've loved me that much this whole time? Like, that's so embarrassing for me to just not even realize. And I think in that moment, I really did. I want to get it right. I want her to love Jesus. I want her to make good decisions. I want us to have a good relationship. And so I think that kind of primed the pump a little bit for us wanting to do this resource. And at the time, also, I was working in student ministry. I was in high school ministry. And, these students would come in and we would tell them about Jesus and tell them about wise choices and having courage and not being afraid and all the things. And then they would go home, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday would happen. And they would come back, and it was like ground zero again. There was just no reinforcement. There was no conversations. And so creating a resource that really does equip moms to pour into their daughters spiritually during the week and not just rely completely on Sundays for all of that, I think is really important for a child's spiritual growth.
Yeah, from a church perspective, and this from being on staff even now, we want to partner with parents and we want to help equip parents. And that's such a big part of why we wanted to do this. Another personal part of wanting to do it is just watching Allie's personal walk with the Lord through and thinking about that through the different seasons of her life. And now as an adult, I just knew there's so much inside of her that I would like to get out to moms and to daughters. And I thought this would be a really fun way to do this is, let's brainstorm on what some of the topics are. Let's play around with some ideas, and ultimately came up with this. And having her leverage all the stuff that's inside of her is just incredible. She's an amazing content creator. And so doing the project with her was fun and funny because we are wired so differently.
So different.
Yeah. What was that like?
Yeah. Writing one chapter would take me 2 weeks because I would plan it, outline it, flesh it out, write it, go back, fix it again. And Allie would take 2 hours. Boom, her chapter's done. And I would be infuriated.
I had a little bit more of a time crunch.
But she did have a time crunch, but also it's just in her. And I knew that, and I wanted to help get it out of her. And so
that's so good. Well, I love how the book is set up because Sandra, you start it and you write to moms at the front, and then Allie writing to girls at the back, and all the chapters are the same titles and they're your take on those subjects. And then in the middle, there's all these activities and questions and just conversation prompts to literally help you meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And I know the book is new, but how have you found, what feedback have you gotten on how it's working for moms and daughters so far?
Yeah, well, it just launched last week, so we don't have a lot yet, but we did toss the manuscript out to some mom-daughter little duos, and so far the feedback has been great. And the main thing that we've heard is it takes the conversations to a different level. We can have, we all want to be intentional with our kids and have conversations and all that, but sometimes it's just awkward to start it, or they feel like, oh, great, she's about to preach to me again, and there's a tendency as moms to do a little monologue and to manufacture teachable moments, which is really never effective. And so this lays a little bit of a framework down for mom to read about comparison and daughter to read the corresponding comparison chapter, and then come together and have some just really good conversations around that. And it gives them some handles to hold on to and some things to take it to a deeper level really a lot faster.
Yeah. And I think what I like two things. Number one, we can be the bad guy. If it's a stupid question, laugh at us. You're not going to laugh at your mom. You're going to laugh at us. But also what I really like is specifically in the Meet Me in the Middle section, it's a conversation. It's not a interview of the daughter because I need you to tell me this and I want to hear this from you. Right. It's like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with as your mom. Like, this is what I'm afraid of. This is how I'm comparing myself to others. This is what I'm feeling overwhelmed about. What are you feeling overwhelmed about? And so it's a dialogue. It's not just a lecture or an interview. It's, hey, we genuinely want you guys to connect. Because yes, the content is great, but ultimately our big prayer is that they walk away feeling closer to each other and closer to God in the process. The questions are a lot of times just a way to get there. But I think for a big issue for girls, tweens, teens, middle school, high school, whatever, is there's this lie out there that they have to figure it out on their own. And that they're alone, and if they don't fit in, they're going to be alone, and this fear of being alone. And so creating this resource of, hey, you've got your mom, and your mom's being honest with you, and you're being honest with her, and so you're getting to kind of feel that connection between the two of you, even despite with or without the content.
Yeah. And one of the things that, because of a heart that Allie has, she has a handful of friends who lost their moms early in life, or for some reason, are detached from a mom-daughter relationship. And so we really wanted to write this in a format, in a way that a grandmother, granddaughter, aunt, niece, mentor, mentee could also pick it up and do this and walk life with a young lady. So we wrote it hopefully easy to contextualize to those kind of relationships also.
I love that you said that, because I know you and Andy have such a heart for foster care and that engagement in the life of someone who isn't necessarily your own flesh and blood child, not to mention adoption and so many of the sweet stories that we all know. I love that this is applicable, even if you are just a mother figure or you're a mentor type role in a girl's life. You mentioned comparison, and that is just Sandra, I've loved everything you've done with Comparison Trap through the years. And I think it is such a visceral struggle for so many of us, even those of us that wouldn't say it's our primary struggle. I think it's just one of the ways that the enemy gets in there and gets at us. So if you would, and this, I'm putting you on the spot, but if you would, Sandra, give a little bit on Comparison Trap for moms, and then Allie, you do the same for any girls that are listening.
Yeah, we kind of laugh and say, if you think this isn't a struggle for you, you either are confused, you're either not being honest or you're not self-aware. So it is a universal struggle. And with social media and all that kind of stuff, if you check in, if you're somebody who checks into Facebook and Instagram and, all the things, you're drawn into it even more. So we talk about it. It's such a big topic. So it's one of our big chapters. And we talk about breaking out of the comparison trap in two ways. Number one, celebrate what God has given others. And number two, leverage what God has given you. So we love the idea of moms and daughters coming together and having real conversations, even moms, saying, here's where I struggle with it. And, my friend got the promotion that I was hoping I was going to get, or this neighbor went on the vacation that I have been dreaming of my entire life, And so we encourage daughters and moms to come together and figure out very tangible, practical ways they can celebrate. Because what we know is celebrating someone else's successes breaks down and diminishes and shrinks jealousy and envy on the inside of us. And so finding ways to celebrate other people when good things happen to them or promotions or whatever, and then figuring out how to leverage what God has given you. How has God wired me? What are my gifts? What are the things that I do have and can use, and how can I leverage that for other people? So those are two surefire ways to break out of the comparison trap, and we talk about that and kind of tease that out.
And then for girls, what I do think is funny, because I did some research on this. This is not a Christian problem. Christians aren't the only people comparing themselves to people. And so in the book, I say comparison says fix your eyes on the people around you. But then culture, if you Google, how do I stop comparing myself to people? There's lots of things, people who don't follow Jesus are like, hey, focus on yourself, just compete with yourself, be the best version of you. And there's good things in that, but culture is ultimately saying, hey, fix your eyes on yourself, see how you can be the best and how you can succeed. But then scripture obviously flips it all over. And in Hebrews, it says, hey, no, fix your eyes on Jesus. Because he is the one. In Hebrews 12, 1-2, the author talks about how we all have a race, that we're all running our own race. We're not running that person's race. We're not running that person's race. We're not.
Or even our mom's race.
Yeah, our mom, whatever. And it says throw off the things that are keeping you from running your race most effectively, and run by fixing your eyes on Jesus. And so understanding that, hey, you are made exactly how you were made, on purpose, for the purposes that God has for you. And comparing yourself to other people is just like trying to push them over and run their race. And it's like, well, that is not good, So I think realizing, hey, God made you on purpose for a specific purpose. You don't have to compare. You just have to follow after Jesus, and you'll ultimately reach the life that he designed for you to live. So I think it's so hard, especially with social media, and you're seeing everybody living their best life, and
or what you think you're
right
is
what
everybody living their best
see.
life.
And so
they're very curated best life.
That's exactly right.
So just kind of, even what you're fixing your time, are you spending your time scrolling, or are you reading about what God has for you? There's so many practical takeaways, but I think celebrating others and leveraging what God's given you are huge.
I have to say, and I think your mom and I can agree on this, there would have been no way for me to healthily place social media as a teenager. I'm so grateful I didn't have it. And I think that the work that you and others of your generation and the generations coming after us, Allie, have in front of them is so much more than even we dealt with. And I think part of the thing that can separate mothers and daughters is that we didn't have the social media aspect of our teenage years. And so I think this is an even more critical resource for helping bridge some of those gaps in conversation and in particular in unique struggles. So I'm so grateful for you guys sharing that. I have to say I have a 17, almost 18-year-old who is a senior in high school, my last child doing high school.
Yeah.
And she, when these came, she said, "Are we going to do this together?" So
Sweet.
I know it's not technically written for her age as much as it is for tweens and early high school, but even she is excited about it. So I know that it's super helpful. So, all right, here's a question. I don't know if you've been asked this yet as you've been talking about the book. Sandra, I know when you and Andy wrote the parenting book several years ago, you said, "We didn't have perfect kids and we are not perfect parents, but we've learned some things along the way that would be helpful." So can you speak a little bit to the mom or the daughter who has a difficult relationship with one another and is like, "Yes, that must be so nice for the Stanleys that this worked out so well that they could write a book about it, but that's not our story." How do you speak to, it wasn't all perfect, this isn't a perfect thing, but it is a needed thing?
Absolutely. It's so funny. I say this all the time. There is one perfect parent, and we are not him.
Yes. Yes.
So we are going to get this wrong all the time. Our kids are not perfect, and they are going to get stuff wrong all the time. And if you had dropped into the Stanley house just on any random given day when everybody was, fourth grade through 10th grade, you would have seen all the same things at our house that you're probably experiencing at your house. So I will, put that out there and tell you, I promise you, moms, it really will get better. They're just going to be some hard days. So the reality is our home was no more perfect than anybody else's home. I think one of the most important things that we can do as parents, and particularly as moms and daughters, is come to the parent-child relationship with humility, with speed in apologizing for things that we need to apologize for owning things that we need to own. And, in our family, we are a family of apologizers and gratitude. So the other side of the humility is showing gratitude. I think that showing gratitude to our kids for things that they are even expected to do goes a long way in making them feel seen and important and appreciated. So I think there are a lot of healthy things that we can incorporate that will get us to that finish line ultimately with good relationships. And if we are parenting with the relationship in mind, we're going, it's going to be better. It's not going to be perfect. It's never perfect. Allie is a very unusual child to raise. She was not the norm. And yet we still had, stuff along the way that was hard. But, I would just say if you had dropped in at any point, it was not a perfect picture in the Stanley house.
And I think speaking to the daughters, and this kind of goes for all ages, middle school, high school, college, young adult, I think it's really easy for us to feel like we don't have any control in the relationship. It's like they tell me what to do. They tell me what we're having for dinner. They tell me everything, and I just have to absorb and respond. And I think, especially with this next generation, I think we need to drill in their heads, you have ownership of your life and your relationships. And so in our family chapter specifically, I talk about, hey, there's 3 things that you can control completely. It's your life. These are the things you can control when it comes to your family, no matter your age or where you land in your family. One of those is gratitude or appreciation. Like we said, of, hey, even if you feel like this relationship is not going well, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in the pantry? Maybe you don't have a meal, but what can you pull out to appreciate? The next one is forgiveness. I think teaching kids and young adults how to forgive their family is so important because we're called to forgive. Like we are called to because we were forgiven by God. We're called to forgive everybody. And so I think when it comes to young kids or whatever age looking at their parents, it's like, well, I'm the kid. They shouldn't mess up. I shouldn't have to forgive. I can just be mad. And it's like, once again, this is your life and you have a choice and you can choose to forgive. So it's appreciation, forgiveness, and then the last one, which is my favorite, is gentleness. You can choose your words, you can choose your actions, you can choose to be gentle. And I think, once again, kids who are just like, I have no control, I'm just going to absorb. And it's like, no, this is your life and this is your childhood, and your family, your parents do have a responsibility, but ultimately you have a responsibility too. And that's easier said than done, I was not perfect at that. That's something I learned later in life. But I think the sooner kids can realize that they have some autonomy and they have some power in their family, I think they can choose how they want to respond.
And this meet me in the middle idea actually sets them up to have that conversation with their mom of, I feel like I don't have any control over anything in my life. And maybe there's some areas that mom can kind of loosen up after having that conversation, or explain how we get more and more independence by being more and more responsive. There's just so many opportunities for us to have real heart-to-heart conversations when we make the time and intentionality to do that.
So, Allie, what would you say to a teen that may be listening or whose friend may tell them about this, and they want to suggest to their mom that they do this together, but they don't know how?
I think most moms would be so thrilled if their daughter came to them and was like, want to spend time with me and do this together? I think, even you can be kind of passive about it if you want to, and just send them a link and say, hey, did you see this? This is cool. Or send them some reels that, social media, just send them some stuff. And I feel like probably a lot of moms would catch on to that. Also, Christmas is coming up. You send a little Christmas list with this on it. Those are very passive ways if you don't want to just go up and be like, we should do this. But I think you shouldn't be afraid. I think daughters who want to do this with their mom's going to be thrilled. But even coming with specific, like, hey, how about on Tuesday mornings we go to a coffee shop before school, or hey, Thursdays after school, let's make some time. I think it's important to have a plan because, you do 1 or 2 chapters and then life gets busy and it's the fall. And so creating a plan, creating a date, hey, just once a week for 8 weeks, let's do this.
Yeah, that's so good. And Sandra, what advice do you have for moms that may go, man, I feel like the ship has sailed for me. My daughters are older, but I still would love to have some sort of meaningful engagement and conversation with them. What advice do you have for moms that are like, why didn't you write this when my kids were young?
Yeah, when my daughter was in 6th grade instead of 12th
Right.
grade. Yeah.
Right.
I would say humility goes a long way. So maybe if you approach it, hey, I know that I got plenty of things wrong during those years when you were maybe more interested in us having conversations. And I think just present it to them in a similar way that Allie just mentioned, for daughters to present it to their moms and say, hey, I would love for us, even if we don't exactly use this as our format, I would love for us to have an intentional time that maybe we could have some conversations about some of this stuff or anything else that you might want to talk about. Yeah. If I would say, hey, mom, give your daughter a blank slate and say, hey, are there 4 or 5 topics or things you would like for us to talk about before you launch off to college? Because I just want our relationship to be great. And I want to end your time here at home, in the best way possible. So I think humility, asking forgiveness if there are specific things that are unresolved, find your piece of the pie, own it, and that will go a long way in helping your daughter maybe circle back. And if not, you continue to love her in every way that you can through the process. And as she gets older, she will begin appreciating that, even if she doesn't now.
It's so good. This is going to be so helpful to so many. So I just want to thank you for stewarding well what God put inside you for moms and daughters. And I'm already excited about the maybe even generational legacies that will shift and the trajectories that will change because people have tools to equip them. And frankly, I just look at it as beating back the schemes of the enemy because division and strife and disunity is his goal.
Yes.
And if he can do that in the family unit, that will just be a trickle down across,
Absolutely.
culture. So thank you for this
Yes.
weapon of warfare against that scheme of the enemy. I want to ask you before we leave, this is what I ask all my guests. So you each get a turn. This podcast is called Everything Made Beautiful because we believe resolutely that God is always at work. And even the things that don't seem beautiful to us initially are being made beautiful, which is a promise of Scripture. And so our question we end on is, if you could design and architect your perfect, beautiful day, what would it look like from start to finish? And the only caveat is, nothing that you currently have to wrestle with right now, like if you're gluten intolerant or something like that, that doesn't have to be part of the beautiful day. So what's your perfect, beautiful day from start to finish?
All right. I get to sleep in. That's my number one. And then so there's a coffee shop by my house. So this is what I would want. I would want me and Clay, my husband, and Haven to walk to the coffee shop. And then I want them to go outside and hang out. And I get to be inside and spend time with Jesus, have like an hour to myself in a coffee shop. And then I go outside and play with them when I'm ready. And I don't have to change any diapers. Not one single diaper do I have to change. And then, let's see, I would love to go home and read. And I would love Haven to be there and be quietly playing next to me and not need me, but be there. And then I think we go to Mexican food. And that's my day.
I love everything about it. That sounds perfect.
A day at home where Clay's also at home and I don't have to change any diapers.
Love it.
Okay, well, this is where I get outed as an introvert. I love being home alone for a nice stretch of the beginning of the day. And that gives me time to get my workout in and have my time alone with the Lord. And then I know this is crazy. I know it sounds like I need therapy. I just love organizing and cleaning out and throwing stuff away. And if I could spend the rest of the day throwing stuff away, hauling stuff away, and cleaning out spaces, then take a great shower, get dressed, and go get a great dinner with Andy, that's my perfect day.
Yeah. I love that. I'm an introvert as well, and people never believe it, but it's true. And the more you talked, the more I got excited about throwing things away and being alone. So Jeff's going to be like, wait, what? It's going to be great. Well, you guys, I can't tell you how grateful I am for you. I'm so grateful that you came on the Everything Made Beautiful podcast, and I cannot wait to tell people where to go get the book. It'll all be in the show notes. You need to follow both Sandra and Allie. There are tons of great resources available for you. If you do not have a church home and you are anywhere in Georgia, you need to be going to a North Point campus or checking them out online, because wonderful teaching, wonderful community, and we loved everything about our time as part of North Point. So if we ever find ourselves back in Georgia, you know where we'll be.
Our arms will be open and ready.
Well, thank you guys so much. And I look forward to hearing, I'm hoping that you'll write one in the next season of parenting as well. So as Haven gets older, some more books are probably coming.
We'll see. We will see.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. Again, Sandra and Allie's book is called Meet Me in the Middle, 8 Mother-Daughter Conversations About Life and Faith. I highly recommend it. I hope that you will get it. I do believe, as I said, that it's one of the ways that we can combat the schemes of the enemy that seek to cause disruption and division in our families. What a great testimony to the world to have mothers and daughters who are unified in their relationship and who are growing stronger together. I'm excited about it, and I hope that you are too, and that you've enjoyed today's conversation. I hope that you are looking around you, as always, to see the ways that God is making everything beautiful, including you. We will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Everything Made Beautiful. We are so grateful for your willingness to tune in. Be sure to follow, rate, and download the podcast, and check out the show notes for additional links and resources from today's episode. You can follow Everything Made Beautiful podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and can subscribe to Shannon's writing on Substack. This information and more is available at shannonsuzannescott.com. See you next time.